Alright, this is part 2 CVT lesson for Eddie called Learning Bar Chords the Right Way, and it involves a lot of things. We left off in part 1 towards the end of page 2. We finished up on example number 5, and I was showing you how you can take some of these chord forms that you would play over here, you know, typically like with these fingerings, you know, say a C and a G, an E major, A minor, an E minor. We all have our own fingerings, but typically we use the same fingerings over here. But there are reasons for things like that to change, and when you get into bar chords, there's really no better reason, because you don't have really any other options. Anything that's played with the open down here has to be compensated by a bar chord, which in essence becomes your opens. And then we end up having to use different fingers for these chords. So we had a strum progression on number 5. So this one, number 6, is arpeggios, which is just picking the notes out of the chord. I used the same 4 chords, which was G major, E minor 7, C major, and C minor. So the 4 chords, and I was using the C shape here, the minor 7 shape here, the A minor 7 shape here, the E major shape here, and the E minor shape here. Okay, just a quick point that I'll just throw out there. You're familiar with what a capo is. Some people use them because it's too hard for them to bar these chords, so they opt for the capo, which in a sense is kind of a cheat, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, you know, you listen to certain songs like Here Comes the Sun from the Beatles, and everything is played up here in the higher tonality, and it works. So you wouldn't want to use the capo just to avoid having to learn your bar chords. Learn them, you know, which that's not an issue with you. It's getting you to the next step in these. So I'm using the same forms as number 5. We're starting with the G major. Yes, it looks like a C chord because that's the form. We know it's a major based off of this form because we can follow it down over here. Okay, so but normally it's those fingers. We have to use these fingers because we're barring. So picking is not critical, but it is something. There's many things to be learned out of one lesson, so I figure why not talk about them. Initially just memorize the picking pattern, and then you can focus on whether you're doing a downstroke or an upstroke. But this one, it's 4 downs and 4 ups. So it's not too much mentally to think about. We're going to go A, D, G, B. Those are downs. And then E, B, G, D, 4 ups. It's an 8th note progression. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We're switching to E minor 7. And we're already there. Just eliminate the pinky. This first finger we talked about in the part 1. Go ahead and cover strings 5 through 1 rather than have to change it up. You don't have to, but it makes more sense, unless this is just not happening for you. But it should be happening for you at this point because we've been using, you know, 6 and 5 strings for most of these. So same exact strings and everything. String numbers 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's those 2. Oops, try again. Okay, we have 2 left. We have the C major, it's 8th position, which means fret 8, just bar fret 8, 10A, 10D, and 9G. It's our E major shape. It's not an E major chord. It's a C major chord because this is our C note. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. That determines the the key of it. C. That's a major form, so we know it's a C major form, and we relate this to the E major chord, which we refer to down here because most people learn these chords before bar chords for a reason. Bar chords are tough. Okay, so on this one, since it's involving 6 strings instead of 5, like the G major and E minor 7, we're going to, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to go 6, 5, 4, 3, skip the B string and go 1, 2, 3, 4 ups. That way we have 8 notes per chord in the arpeggio. The transition is simple. We're going from C major. Also, be watching how I'm barring if you need to, because you can see an angle on this index. It's not flat like that. That makes it harder for me, for most people. I'm off on the edge a little bit of it. So we're going from the C major to C minor. We lift the middle finger off. We haven't changed, all we've changed is the form. It's still a C because we still have the C root. Okay, there's our E minor shape. We follow it down, boom. Except when normally it's like this. Alright, so back up here, do the exact same thing. 6, 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Major chords sound happy, minor sounds sad. And you can use that middle finger to help smash down the index if you want. I could do it either way, but I'm kind of in that habit of it's got to go somewhere, and it just feels more secure here. Once again, here's the whole thing. And I want to point out another thing for you, Eddie, because one of your concerns was, and this doesn't mean you were doing anything wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, it was G major to B minor. I don't know if it was these two forms you were having trouble going to. Don't quote me on it. It was something like that, but I got the gist of what you were talking about. It's transitioning to something and making it happen without such a big gap in there. Sometimes you can be doing everything right and it's not your fault, and it just takes more practice. You're just going to have to keep doing it. Then that can be done several ways, by eliminating your picking and strumming completely and just going through the motions with the fret hand. Because let's face it, if this hand can't hit those chords quick enough, this is irrelevant at that point in that stage. So once you can get through these chords quickly, this becomes more important, right? But there are little tricks you can do, and I do this. The longer you play, the more we just do certain things certain ways. For example, going from the E minor 7 to the C major in that last progression. Let me show you something. What I did was I set the first couple down in order, in the sense that I knew, and this only works when you're picking, by the way. If you're picking something, that buys you time. Obviously, if you're playing a progression that's going 6, 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, like we're using, for example, string 1's not going to be as important yet because we haven't got to it yet. So you can set a couple of them down, start your picking, and then partway through, go ahead and maybe drop this down and then get the angle off the bar set up. Try that again for you. Now I can set them all down, boom, cut and dry, but I'm more comfortable doing it as I go. There's nothing wrong with that. That may be a big key for you, Eddie, to getting these chords. If you're picking, if you're talking about something strumming, it's a different ball game because you're attacking all the strings at once. So the high E is just as important, even though the initial impact will be off the E. Let's face it, a strum passes like that. Picking, you got a few seconds. All right, so keep that in mind. Might be a good way to approach, if it is a strumming thing, getting there is doing it the way I'm saying right now. And then you got to find fun, creative ways to make that happen. All right, so let's move on. Page 3, and I just called this page Extra Stuff page. Sometimes you may need to start by playing bar progressions as power chords, and as you get more comfortable, add one string to each power chord or 2-string chords. The following is an example taken from number 4 on page 2. Remember, once you get somewhat comfortable, then add an extra string, etc., etc. Before you know it, you'll be doing it. Make sure you're using correct fingerings taken from bar chords. Alright, in other words, on this, like I said, this is number 4 from page 2, which was this one. That's the first half of it. What I'm doing on this is making it a power chord. If I was struggling with those 4 chords, right, we can just take the root and the 5th, which would be the 5 on the low E and the 7 on the A. And just hit those 4 times. Then 3A, 5D. So they're all 2-string power chords. I mean, because it's, oops, I did the wrong progression. And that can, you know, doesn't seem like much, but that can allow you time to just get a little more comfortable with at least 2 out of however many notes are in that bar chord, and focus on muting above on the low E when you need to. The next one, the second half of it, I expanded on it because I want you to get the idea here. The other one on page 2 went like this. The second half of it was so on this one, rather than just show you 2 strings, I want to show you the process of how to do chord building. We're going to do not just a power chord, we're going to add an extra note to it, and it'll be the octave. So 5, 7, 7 this time. So there'll be 3 strings. You hit those twice, and then the next one is a C chord. Now here's the deal. I don't want you to use the same fingering here. We want to use the fingering that we were using in number 4 on page 2, which was where we barred with the 3rd finger, or the 4th finger. That I was using the 3rd. So when you switch to it this time, although it may seem weird, you may just want to go. You're going to defeat the purpose of building this power chord plus octave to play the bar chord if you don't make yourself do it this way. First finger 3A, 3rd finger bar the 5th fret on the D and G. The B isn't as important yet. It may already work and sound fine for you, but this is, they're examples for you. So we'll be going bar. Then these ones, we use these fingers again. Because if we looked at example number 4, we would see that that's the fingering for those. Make sense? So, a lot of stuff to think about. Notice finger change up. That's the key in there. A few other things, extra goodies I threw in here. The minor 7 form in open position and then applied to a bar chord, because we didn't go over, you have a lot in there, but there's more is what I'm getting at. For example, this first one, E minor 7, very easy. 3rd finger 2A, and everything else is open. And there's multiple ways to play the same chord, but this is how we're doing it. Once again, we don't want to use our 1st finger. That's going to be barring in a second. So if we're converting this to a bar chord, not in the same key, but just a bar chord version of a minor 7, I went from the E minor 7 up to an A minor 7, which would basically mean we're taking this whole thing up, barring the 5th fret on everything, and 3rd finger does 7A. And then, we've got the 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, the next one is a 7th form, and it's based off, the last one we did was based off a 6th string E minor 7. This one is just a regular 7th chord. I'm using the A7 form, 5-string bar chord, so there's no low E in this. Now A7 in a book, if you look at it, they may show you like this, they may show you like this, there's different ways. We're using 3rd finger 2D, 4th finger 2B. We don't play the low E, and it's strings 5 through 1. We're going to convert that to a D7 using that concept. So you would go, move this up to 7D, 7B, we're going to use our index to compensate for those opens by handling fret 5 on strings 5 through 1. And there's our D7. There's your form, right? We relate it to what we know here, but we got to use these fingers. Okay, we're moving on. Major 7 form. Okay, so in the open position area first, this would be 2D, 1G, 2B. That's the standard fingering for that. We're doing a bar chord version, so we have to change it up. Third finger 2D, middle 1G, pinky 2B. Really nice sounding chord, by the way. Strings 5 through 1, you can play it as an arpeggio first. And we're going to convert that to a C major 7, 5 string, third position. So we're going to move this up to 5, 4, 5, same strings and everything. We're going to use our index bar, the 3rd fret, all the way from string 5 to string 1. And there you go. So most of the time, if you know a bunch of chords over here, you can look for the form up here and go, oh, wait a minute, why am I making this so hard? I know this, but I know it over here. Once you see that, that totally helped me when I came across that. Okay, so there we go. That's a major 7. Another one you can do is using kind of like a C major shape. Go 3A, 2D, open G, B, and E. But we're going to use different fingers. We're going to go pinky and 3rd finger. So it's 3, 2 on the A and D. The rest are opens, no low E string. We're going to convert that C major 7 into an E major 7 by moving it up to 7, 6, A, D, and barring the 4th fret on the last 3 strings. Once again, if you want, you can bar up further, it won't matter. There's your E major 7. Using that C major 7 form. Last one, G major. You've probably seen people play it like this. 3, 2, open, 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 3. It looks ridiculous. This one used to drive me crazy back in the day. I'd even see it with this finger layout, even in chord books. Couldn't figure it out. Well, there's several reasons. Sometimes it's just an easier way to go from, say, G to C in an open position. And you can do suspendeds on it and stuff like that. But in this case, and these are difficult, man. You don't see people play these a lot, but we're going to take the G major form, and yes, it happens to be a G major chord here. We're going to move that up to play a C major bar chord, 8th fret on the low E for the root, so obviously this is a 6th string. And so we got 8, 7, bar the 5th fret, D, G, and B, and obviously it'll be touching the high E. And then pinky will handle fret 8 on the high E. Oops. You can hear that's not super comfortable for me even. It's good to know them. So we just look for our root, and that's, like I said earlier, that'll tell you. That's a G root. So if you wanted a D major using the G form, 6th string, you would go up to 10, 9, bar the 7th fret, and then go to the 10 high E. That's the D major. That's equivalent to going or. So, and that'll open up your chord vocabulary as well. That's it. Last thing I wrote, these examples are why there aren't just one way when it comes to chord fingering. Always explore options, even if they are a challenge. Alright? So, I hope this helps you. I put a lot of thought into it before actually tabbing this out because I wanted to make sure it would target in on the areas you wanted, but I wanted it to be thorough. So I think you're going to be okay with this, man. Let me know. Sometimes, you know, you may have the majority of these things covered, but it's just going to take a little more time. You got to push yourself. If it's a tempo thing, you know, a speed thing, like there's a pause between the G major 6th string and the B minor 5 string bar chords, you just got to go through the motions, man. Make your fret hand do it. Even if they're not completely accurate, test yourself and see. and then go ahead and play them as arpeggios, you know, and then try strumming them. You got to mix this stuff up, but it'll happen, dude, guaranteed. All right, appreciate it, man, and had fun doing this. We'll talk to you very soon.